Awesome. Thank you so much for the invitation and for the introduction. Hey, everyone. This is Daniel for RockTheJVM. Most of you know my work at this little platform that I've created for learning Scala and teaching pretty much everything in the Scala ecosystem. I'm still creating new materials for everything there is to know about Scala, functional programming, distributed systems, and tools based on Scala. And I wanted to talk about Scala toolkits and Scala frameworks. And this presentation is not necessarily about giving insights about which tools to use, although I'm also going to share some tools that work for me, but rather to start a conversation about where Scala is going and how we can make Scala easily accessible, easily, let's say, developable, and a nice tool for other developers to pick up so that they can build awesome applications and awesome systems. So the title of my talk is Where Are the Scala Frameworks? This is something that I've been thinking about over the past year, and in particular in the context of Scala companies or Scala startups. So Scala is a great functional programming language, and it's already been proven for absolutely critical systems, from LinkedIn and Twitter and banking applications and payment systems and gaming and real-time systems and data streaming, and entire fields were transformed by Scala, with data engineering being one of them with Apache Spark, and many companies using Scala for various use cases. So Scala has already been proven as a great language. But Scala is still underrated for products. And this is something that I've been thinking about over the past year, given how easily many products written in JavaScript have popped up. And I was wondering, where on earth are the Scala products? Because Scala is such a great language. And I've been thinking about, for me, creating products based on Scala. Startups of one person or maybe just a small team. So I wanted to talk about products and many companies written or based on Scala. Now, why would you do a Scala startup? There are a zillion frameworks out there written in many languages, most of them in the JavaScript and in Python world. So we have like Angular and Vue and React and Rails. Many of these frameworks have single-handedly started industries. They created like $500 billion worth of value in the economy, and many of these things are very, very powerful. My thesis here is that Scala is at least as powerful as any one of these frameworks, but is still underrated. So Scala can trump all of these. This is a really big statement to make, but I firmly believe that the power of Scala is very much underutilized. So I would like to start the conversation on or to start talking about Scala startups or tools for Scala startup. This is something that I've spoken about before in much more detail in other places, but I wanted to talk about ways to make Scala easily accessible or easy to take into account or easy to incorporate into your product or into your applications. So the main goal or the main reason why you would have a Scala startup is because Scala is a scalable language in the true sense of the word. Just from the first principles of Scala, you can start very small, just from a one-line script. You can compile and run that right there, and you can ship an MVP, and you can expand as necessary by staying in the Scala ecosystem. So you can add libraries, you can add tools, you can add best practices, you can add processes in your code. So you can start a startup from literally a single person to an industry-shaking rocket ship if you want. So Scala is or has this potential. And it's also beautiful to write. It's beautiful to look at. It's really good intellectual stimulation for us software engineers who crave this sort of feedback loop. So it's concise, it's super expressive, its type system is almost unparalleled on the JVM, it's super powerful, and it's also more multi-platform because it has good interoperability between the JVM and JavaScript. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. Now, Scala has also been battle tested in big systems like I spoke about before, and this should give Scala the credibility that it deserves. Now, I wanted to show some tools and some sets of things that worked in the Scala ecosystem for me personally that you can incorporate in your own applications. You can consider the following as a sort of a cheat sheet of which libraries to use. Obviously, it's a non-exhaustive list, and there are many more interesting libraries coming up and maturing as we speak. So take it as a non-exhaustive list. Mostly the tools for Scala products are usually stacks of libraries that work well together. So generally, the way that people have started up with Scala is to just take Scala vanilla or Scala with a minimal set of libraries and then expand from there. So people created their own best practices, and they came up, or organically, we have many ecosystems of libraries. One such ecosystem has historically been the actor model with Akka, or in the recent period, we have Apache Pico, which is the open source version of Akka. It's based on the actor model. It has been proven in big systems, and it's worked best for me in my own career and in my own experiments for event-based systems. So things that take payments or orders in e-commerce, or just events that you can then process as you see fit. And the combination that I saw worked well, obviously, were all in the Akka/Peko ecosystem. So you have Peko HTTP, which has a very interesting DSL. We have Streams, which has an almost graphical, but still compilable DSL for managing streams of data. We have the actor model, obviously, for concurrent business logic. We have the command query responsibility segregation, the CQRS pattern, which is implemented as a first-class citizen in Peko persistence. So this is super powerful for event-based systems, plus clustering if one of the business logic modules cannot simply stay on the same machine, and there are use cases for that. So this is a powerful set of tools that you can use in your application. This is one mental model. Another mental model is the type level ecosystem. Type level is based on Cat's effect, which has or borrows ideas from Haskell, and it's best for really complex products that have really solid math at the core. Obviously, the learning curve is a little bit steeper in this case, so this works great if you already have well-trained teams that already know the core principles of this sort of effect system. And the combination of libraries that work very well in this ecosystem, obviously the ecosystem is a little bit bigger than that, but we have HTTP4S, we have Circe for JSON, we have FS2 for streams. This is a very elegant library. We have Cat's effect, obviously, for effect systems that you can use as the core business logic. Then we have Cats for the mathematical representation of what it means to have a set of computations that conform to certain principles, and then you have Doobie or Skunk or various libraries for storage. And obviously, many products need some sort of storage system or database interaction or that sort of thing, for which the type level ecosystem does have solutions. So that's another mental model. Another one is Zio, obviously. We also have a similar idea or same first principles with the effect system, but with a twist, with the type system already guaranteeing effect systems that take requirements that can fail with certain errors. So we exploit a little bit more of the Scala type system at the declaration phase, and obviously with the dependency injection mechanism, which is pretty magical in Zio, and that leads to robust backends being shipped very quickly because you don't have to care about where those modules are being injected. You just say provide, and the Zio magic takes care of itself. And obviously, there are many libraries in this Zio ecosystem. Recently, Zio has restricted the set of libraries that the Zio ecosystem has committed to in terms of compatibility and effort. But there are many that solve pretty much everything that you need. You have Zio HTTP, which is now at 3.0. We have Caliban, which is another library that works very well with Zio for GraphQL APIs. We have Zio Stream, obviously the Zio effect system for core business logic. We have database interaction with Quill based on macros, and Magnum is an interesting library that is maturing very quickly, and Magnum is very promising. So again, another mental model. Then we have the Lihaoi library, the library ecosystem, which is based pretty much on vanilla Scala. The libraries themselves are quite magical if you look at the implementations. So Howie is one of the Scala developers that I personally have the most respect for, because he single-handedly built this entire ecosystem with his own skin in the game by creating his own products, and I think he published his own book with his own tools. And some of these libraries include Cask and Scala tags. And pure Scala as the business logic. This is the philosophy of the Howie ecosystem. And then you have various libraries for database interaction, like Scala SQL. And we also have the mill build tool, which Howie is actively developing as we speak. Now, these are mostly for backend, but we also have front-end libraries. So Scala.js is a very underrated piece of the Scala ecosystem because it's really mature, it's really stable, it has a policy of 0 bugs, which is something almost unheard of, and there are a couple of libraries that work very well for front-end applications. Letting aside the fact that the JavaScript bundle is a little bit big compared with regular JavaScript libraries, if you can stomach that, if you have like a web application that doesn't require extreme responsiveness at the first load, then you have a very nice mental model for writing front-end applications with libraries like Tyrian and Laminar, which I personally tried and used myself. These are super great, and the mental models are very, very interesting. They're super intellectually stimulating, and the code is very short, very concise, very powerful at the same time, which is also the core feature of Scala itself. And likewise, we have Scalably Typed, which is this tool for translating TypeScript libraries into the Scala ecosystem. So technically, we have access to both the JVM ecosystem on one hand and the TypeScript ecosystem on the front end. The tools are insufficiently developed as we speak, but the tools are there. And we can leverage these ecosystems for great benefit into the Scala ecosystem. And then we also have various liaison libraries to cross-publish data models, for example, or APIs or endpoints in the form of Taper or Tapir, the way that I think this is correct pronunciation, Smithy 4S, and then we have data definition libraries like Squance or Monocle or Spire, Chimney, and many other data definition libraries that make it easy for us to build specialized applications, and many more tools that are being developed as we speak. So this is, like I said, a non-exhaustive list. And for example, Kio is a very promising ecosystem that is popping up. And this is, again, a new mental model with the direct style as one of its important features. So as you can see here on the screen, you can take the screen as a cheat sheet, really, of which libraries you can pick if you choose an ecosystem. But these ecosystems have different mental models, and these kind of grew up organically. For us, if we wanted to build applications, Scala is great, and we can use all these libraries. And Scala is very underrated for our full stack products, including the JVM and JavaScript. But in my personal take, in my personal opinion, and you may disagree, and this is why I wanted to start this conversation, is that we need more frameworks. Where are the Scala frameworks? That's the idea. So I stumbled upon many comments on Twitter, on socials, on Reddit. This is one screenshot that was a comment on my own video, how to build full stack applications with Zio, with a Zio stack. And somebody wrote that they're a little afraid that there are so many web frameworks for Scala. So this is like zoomed in, excuse the resolution. So they're a little afraid that there are so many web frameworks that have been tested yet. They can't all be thoroughly secure, right? So we have authorization, protection against injections, encrypted cookies. So people think, or some people may think, that there are too many web frameworks for Scala. But I'm wondering, where are they? What are they? So in my opinion, the tools that I've just described are toolkits or sets of libraries that work well together, but you have to kind of stack them conscientiously with great intention, with relatively great effort compared to like the likes of JavaScript. And we lack the kind of frameworks that do much of the stuff for us so that we can focus on the business logic. The only true framework in the Scala ecosystem right now, in my personal take, is still Play Framework. So this is a true framework in the sense of the word, with batteries included in the sense that it comes with all tools like building and compiling and route definition and configuration and all sorts of bells and whistles. And it's been proven over more than a decade with many big applications for, I don't know, large media publications, HMRC. I remember that I held a training like 2 years ago on for people that would then work for the UK's tax system, and they use Play framework for the web application. So Play is great. It works very well. And if you want to use Play, all you need to do is take Play and then use core Scala for the business logic. If you obviously need, you can stack in Akka or Apache Pecco if you are interested in writing concurrent code, but Play takes care of most of the stuff. If you want to include data storage, you can use Slick, which plugs into Play quite nice. So Play is a good framework for opinionated standards within existing teams, just like the Spring for Java. And Play has not been dethroned from this spot, in my personal take, ever since Play came up. Which is why I haven't seen pretty much anything else that can consider themselves a framework. Obviously, you can take stacks of libraries that you know very well, and you can say to the world that, hey, I have a framework. Use these libraries and use these best practices. But it's not a framework that somebody can simply take for granted and then just start developing, in my personal take. So I would advocate for the creation of new frameworks based on our personal experience, because there are many problems that we are solving in a repeated fashion. So, for example, we reinvented the wheel many, many times. Scala has this, or not necessarily Scala, I think. I think the developers' nature, in my opinion, has this tendency to reinvent the wheel and get the interesting stimulation out of creating something, let's say, difficult or that other people are using to the same scale. But we obtain very general libraries that are not opinionated, and this is good because the general libraries can form the basis of very powerful products. But unless you really know what you're doing, and if you create a Scala product, the developer speed is not up to the bar or not up to the speed of JavaScript with the same kind of knowledge. And I'm going to give you a personal example. So I'm going to add reasons or add motives for why I believe this is true for me. This is my personal take. But I think a framework in the Scala ecosystem will be very valuable because we can automate some frequent patterns, and this will help us write quality code very quickly and have very safe applications at the same time, leveraging the Scala type system. We can add the sort of boilerplate that everybody struggles with, like authorization and security, like payment systems, very quickly. So right now, if you want to add a payment system in the Scala ecosystem, you only have to add the JVM stripe, for example, and include that into, I don't know, type level or Zio or Play in whatever mental model you have to model yourself around. So we can create things that could make these sort of processes much easier. And it's not only beneficial, I believe it's necessary. Integrations with external services are also very important in this day and age because you write your application, but other people write their own. And so it's often good to integrate with other services that can accelerate the value add that you create for your audience or for the people that you want to serve so that we don't reinvent the wheel. Leverage best practice in the Scala ecosystem, have some first principles that people can integrate very easily, not to mention the dev speed and the publishing of artifacts of products that you can actually ship and use for the benefit of your audience. The most important thing of a good framework, I believe, and I've seen this from my own experience in many programming language ecosystems, is the ease at which you can get started with a framework. So why would you build a Scala framework? And I'm going to give you a good example because I only have 5 minutes. So as an aside, I rewrote the front-facing website of RockTheJVM. So RockTheJVM just had a static HTML. I rewrote that thing and brought up the blog into my own little framework with Astro. Astro is a JavaScript framework which can include YAML and TypeScript and JavaScript and React components and raw HTML and Markdown for blog posts in MDX, which can include React components and sometimes multiple formats in the same file. To tell you the truth, I kind of forgot what it meant for me to know how to code. I had this feeling of oh my God, I don't even know what code is anymore. We have many different formats in the same file. We have many different files in the same in the same repository or in the same workspace, and Astro can seamlessly compile all of that. And what made it great for me was this great organization. It was super intuitive for me. I barely read any documentation, and it had everything build checked and compile time type checked. So if I missed something in the front matter of a blog post, Astro would not compile my code and it would not build a website. So it offered the benefit of a type system, even though JavaScript is horrible in the type system realm. So I would advocate for a Scala framework that could act as a compiler. So Scala is a great language to quote unquote compile many different files and leverage the Scala type system to include schemas or types or collections or configurations or logic if you want to make a dynamic web application, visuals, UI, and also content if you want to write, I don't know, media publications or blogs, as in the case of RockTheJVM. So I would argue that we can be much more opinionated on what it means for best practice for various kinds of applications or various kinds of frameworks, for data pipelines, for simple web applications, for distributed systems, for integrating with external services, or pretty much anything else that you can think of. And in my personal take, a set of best practices that you can easily publish or easily share with other people and that are easily to get started with is what conceptually constitutes a framework. So I would argue that a framework is equivalent to having best practices or having opinions on what is a good fill in the blank web application or data engineering system and so on and so forth. So the question of where are the Scala frameworks, I would rephrase that as where are these opinionated best practices? So telling the world that Scala can do anything is essentially saying nothing and proves very little. The Scala is super powerful indeed, but the more sets of opinionated and targeted best practices we have in Scala, the more it can prove to the world that it's the powerful and beautiful language that we all know and love. So this is the conversation that I wanted to start. It's not a conclusive discussion, and I welcome your contributions and questions. Thanks so much for coming to my talk.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Daniel. We do have a question for you. So kind of a longer one. It would be great to know your opinion on project architecture. Is it better to adopt a clean architecture approach where frameworks are seen only as implementation details, or is it preferable to use a strongly opinionated framework? Alternatively, would compiling a set of best practices for implementation be beneficial? What are your thoughts?
Okay, I have an extra slide here that I haven't talked about. A good framework, in my opinion, needs to be a balanced one. So there is a tension between a too powerful framework, a too magical thing that does pretty much everything for you. All you need to do is annotate your stuff and then wait for stuff to happen, as in the case for Spring. And if it compiles, it does. But if something goes wrong, you have no idea how to debug that or how to fix it. So there's a tension between that and having a too low level, high degree of power. So there is a balance between these sort of extremes. I would also argue against thinking too high level and having code just describe what it's supposed to do without having some sort of entry point into debugging or performance optimization or a lower level API if you choose. This is one of the reasons why Akka, for example, is great at that. The Akka HTTP API has many levels. It has this directive level. It has a very low level where you can process bytes if you so wish. So I would argue that a good framework needs to offer both. It needs to offer a high level, at a high degree of abstraction for easy applications like to-do lists and stuff, so that you can finish up everything in just like an hour or two. But if you want to do something more complicated, the framework should open its guts to you so that you can do performance optimization or change some implementation details. And obviously, that's hard to do.
We have a couple of other questions. Actually, there were a lot of them rolling in. So I'm going to put them all on Discord for you, Daniel, whenever you have a moment.
Yeah, I'm going to go out on Discord. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, thank you so much, and thank you for your talk. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me, and thank you everyone for coming to my talk. I'm also going to release new material on Scala. I'm working on a meta programming course as we speak. So yeah, stick out for more stuff from RockTheJVM. Thank you so
That's
much for
all.
coming to my talk.
Thank you, Daniel. Have a good one.